Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Robert Adams, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 1 Cheryl Alston. 2026 marks 125 years of dedicated service by the Australian Army and its predecessors. Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Trevor James Attwood. By June of 1971, Australia had been involved in the Vietnam War for 9 years. With no end in sight to an unpopular war, the Australians, like the Americans, were reducing their forces as they prepared to pull out of Vietnam. The withdrawal would take time, and it would not be easy. Viet Cong and North Vietnamese army forces began moving troops back into Phuoc Tuy province, luring the Australians into a large-scale ambush in order to inflict a heavy defeat and a propaganda victory. Aware of the enemy movement, the Australians launched Operation Overlord. Named after the 1944 invasion of Normandy, it was aimed at destroying the enemy forces and preventing them from interfering with the province's security and the Australians' withdrawal. 55 years ago today, on the 5th of June 1971, the Australians deployed by helicopter and armoured personnel carriers north to the province border of Phuoc Tuy near the Courtenay rubber plantation. Operation Overlord was successful in driving the enemy from their bases in the area and thwarting plans for further incursions into Phuoc Tuy, at least temporarily. But the enemy force had not been destroyed. 10 Australians had been killed in action and 24 were wounded. For their bravery under fire, 8 Australians were recognised with awards. Today, we remember all of those who took part in Operation Overlord. We pay our respects to the men and women commemorated here on the Roll of Honour and to the survivors who returned home. This evening, we warmly welcome, representing the Returned and Services League of Australia, ACT branch, Commander Paul Garai. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, I now invite you to please stand and join in singing the national anthem. Visitors who are able to do so may now be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It could also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they have done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorials galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who've given their lives for us during war and on operations over more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Trevor James Attwood. Trevor Attwood was born on the 14th of February 1948 in Sydney to Robert John Attwood and Rebecca Thompson, near Borland. His parents had met while serving in the Royal Australian Air Force during the Second World War and were married on the 8th of April 1944. He was to be their only son. Just a month after his birth, Rebecca died suddenly at home, aged 28. Robert remarried in 1949 and the family moved to Uralla, New South Wales. Trevor Attwood grew up there, attending Uralla Primary School and Uralla Intermediate High School. He left school at the end of 1962 after attaining his intermediate certificate. He worked briefly as a garage attendant before becoming an apprentice electrician and studying at Tamworth Technical College. He worked diligently, earning his trade certificate in April 1969. Outside work, Attwood was a keen sportsman and played rugby league, cricket and tennis. He followed many other sports avidly. In July 1969, he attended a medical screening for national service and was found fit. Attwood enlisted on the 28th of January 1970 and was sent to the 3rd Recruit Training Battalion at Singleton for basic training. During a stand-down period in March, he suffered head injuries in a motor vehicle accident near Armidale. He was hospitalised briefly, and after returning to Singleton, he was able to catch up on much of the training he had missed. At the end of the course, his instructors described him as solid and dependable and an all-round good performer. In late June, he was posted to the Royal Australian Regiment Reinforcement Wing and was immediately warned for service in South Vietnam. The following month, he attended a battle efficiency course at the Jungle Warfare Training Centre in Canberra. On the 9th of September, Attwood flew out of Sydney for Saigon. On reaching the 1st Australian Task Force base at Nui Dat, Attwood was posted to the 7th Battalion, the Royal Australian Regiment. Over the next 6 months, he was heavily involved in near constant operations. When 7RAR completed its tour in February 1971, Attwood was posted to headquarters, 1st Australian Task Force, where he became a member of 3-section Details and Employment Platoon, Headquarters Company 1ATF. By June 1971, Australian forces in South Vietnam were slowly being withdrawn. Throughout May, forces of the People's Army of Vietnam and the Viet Cong had tracked to southern Long Can province, only 25 miles from the Australian base at Nui Dat. An operation called Overlord, in honour of the Normandy landings in 1944, was launched to stop these forces from re-entering Phuoc Toi province, where they would threaten the Australian withdrawal and the security of the province. Operation Overlord began on the 5th of June. 2 days later, soldiers from the 3rd Battalion, the Royal Australian Regiment, supported by Centurion tanks and armoured personnel carriers from the 1st Armoured Regiment and the 3rd Cavalry Regiment, were involved in a heavy battle in which 3 Australians were killed and 10 were wounded. A major enemy bunker complex required 4 days to clear, but the enemy were not finished with the Australians. On the 12th of June, a patrol made up of the Details and Employment Platoon and A Squadron, 3rd Cavalry Regiment, were patrolling in their area of operations. 3 armoured personnel carriers carried the soldiers of D&E Platoon, who chose to sit on top of the vehicles to avoid becoming casualties to mines. Members of the 3rd section sat atop the rear APC in the column, call sign 84 Bravo. It was late afternoon when the lead APC stopped to investigate an artillery shell on the track. As the APCs stopped, the patrol was ambushed by an element of the 1st 274th Main Force Regiment, which opened fire with small arms and rocket-propelled grenades. One RPG hit the turret of 84 Bravo, and as it detonated, it caused a box of Claymore mines stored in an external storage bin to detonate as well, causing utter devastation. 2 members of the APC's crew were killed instantly, as were 5 of the men on top of the vehicle. 3 others were wounded. Among the dead was Attwood. He was killed instantly by blast wounds to his head, torso and limbs. His remains were returned to Australia and laid to rest in Uralla Cemetery. The epitaph on his headstone reads, "Always remembered, rest in peace." Private Trevor Attwood was 23 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, along with more than 500 others from the Vietnam War. His photograph is displayed this afternoon beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of courage, sacrifice, told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Trevor James Attwood, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.